In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate the concept of the input function in Python language. But before we get into the input function, let me just briefly talk about the Python language itself. So the Python language is an interpreted, object-oriented, high-level programming language with several dynamic semantics. What it does is it allows for rapid application development. Python can be used as a scripting or glue language to connect existing components together. In other words, you can connect various modules and so on. Python's simple, easy-to-learn syntax emphasizes and facilitates readability and code reuse. So in essence, we use Python language in comparison to Java or other program languages like C++ or C++. Python is fairly simple, straightforward, and you can use Python both as an object-oriented or a functional language as well. Next, the Python input and output function. There are hardly any programs without any input. In other words, whenever you write a code or you write a program, you would like the user to enter something or enter some text or some values. And this input can come in various ways. For example, from a database, and the computer, mouse clicks, and movements, or from the internet itself. And Python provides the function called the input, open parentheses, end parentheses. If the input function is called, the program flow will be stopped until the user has given an input and has ended the input with the return key, which simply implies that Python is going to prompt a user to enter something before it executes the next line of code. Here's an example. In this example, notice this is an assignment statement called name equals, here's the input function. So input, and then your string called what's your name. Next line of code, Python is going to print the string that says nice to meet you, plus the name, and then plus a exclamation mark. Next, it's going to prompt you with another input function called the age. So age equals input, and then your age. And then finally, the print statement is going to print the text string which says, so you're already plus age, plus years old, plus name, plus the exclamation mark. So really, there's a logical flow of things here. In other words, the user will be prompted to enter a name first, and then Python is going to display a message that's going to say, nice to meet you. Next, the user will be prompted to enter his or her age. And then, subsequently, Python is going to display a message that's going to say, so you're already X years old, and print your name as well. Let me, in fact, demonstrate this using the Python shell here, using the idle. And let's see if we can create the input function. Okay, so I'm going to say name. I'm going to make an assignment statement here, just like it shows. And here's my input function, input, and then I'm going to use my string. I'm going to say, what is your name? And recall, these color coding is fairly straightforward and very important. The purple color is the function, and then of course your string is in green. And within the idle, I can execute one line at a time, right? But if I need to write a program or this entire script, then I would need to create or open up the new file by clicking on the file, new file, and here's my shell again. I'm going to minimize this so you can see. There we go. Okay, so let's write our program which requires an input function. So I'm going to say name. Or before I even say name, it's a good practice to use comments within your code. And we did take a look at how to enter a comment within the Python language in previous lessons. Okay, so let me in fact enter a comment first. Comments always start with a number sign. So I'm going to say number sign, the following will ask the user for a username or just for a name. And then I'm going to say name equals input, parentheses, and then of course my string. what is your name? Close my parentheses. So here's my first assignment statement. Notice in this instance, if I click enter, which takes me to the next line, and if I were to write the same within my Python shell here in the idle, if I were to hit the enter key, it would execute this statement, right? Recall the Python idle. All right, great. So we have our first line, and now we're in our next line. So next line, we're going to say print equals and display a message. Nice to meet you. And a space bar, which in fact adds a space to this message. Otherwise, it's going to combine the next character or variable that you're going to use. Okay, so we're going to say nice to meet you, enter a space, close my string, and then I'm going to add. Remember the concatenation, right? To join, which means I'll use the plus sign. So I'm going to say plus, and then I'm going to say name. Now what this does so far is all I'm saying here, display this message that says nice to meet you plus name. Now name in this case is what? Is basically the input function. So whatever you enter as your name in the first line of code, Python is going to display it right here where it says name. Okay, it's fairly logical, right? Step by step. And then I'm going to add plus another string and my exclamation mark here. And close my parentheses. And Python tells me by highlighting it that the line is complete. Next, I'm going to enter. So far, I've entered 2 lines of code. The first line is just going to prompt a user to enter a name, and then it's going to print nice to meet you, and then the username with an exclamation mark. Next, I'm going to assign another variable here called age, do another assignment statement, and basically follow the same line of code here. What is your age? And then once my assignment is complete, and of course, what I missed was the input function, of course, right? I'm going to say input. And then what is your age? Go to my next line. I'm going to say print equals so you are already, and I'm going to add, right, the age here, plus I'm going to put some more text within the strings, years old. Notice how I'm in fact writing an English statement here or a sentence. All I'm doing is telling Python to enter age from the preceding line of code, right? Anything else is basically in green is all text. So you're already plus age plus years old. And of course I can always leave a comma and a space. It's part of my English language. And then plus the name again, plus my exclamation mark. There we go. Okay, so let me expand this so we can view the entire code. Great. Since I've written this code, let me execute this code by clicking on the Run menu option and then run the module, where I can use the keyboard shortcut using the F5 key. So once I click on the Run module, of course Python asks me or wants me to save this module before it can execute it. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to scroll up to my Documents folder, Data Files, and then my Python folder, and I'm going to say my input function. And of course, the save as type is always .py or .pyw. Click save. And here's what Python does. It executes the first line of code and prompts me, because I've used the input function, and prompts me, what is your name? So I'm going to say John, enter key, what is your age? Of course, it's not my real age. I'm going to say 22, and then it ends the program here. Now notice it doesn't really do the print, right? So let me go back to our code here. Move this aside so you can see. Okay. So let's evaluate this. First, it says name equals input, and then it says, what is your name? Of course, let's add a space here, because once I add a space here, notice in my results, you'll see a space after the name. Or I can even make it better. I can put a colon here to make it look nicer. So it's going to say, what is your name, colon, space. And of course, I can always add a question mark because it's a question. Here we go. But notice there's something wrong with the print code here, because it's not asking me the next line. In fact, when I enter my name, it should print nice to meet you and my name. And of course, the reason why, because right after print, I do not need an equal sign, because this is not an assignment statement. This is simply a print command. Okay, so print, parentheses, nice to meet you, and then of course my rest of the code. Same thing with the print after age. I'm going to delete the equal signs here, and here we go. So just one more time, let's evaluate line by line. So it's name, my input function in purple, and then my green in strings, and then it's going to print nice to meet you, which is fine. Age, another assignment statement. It's going to ask me for my input, what is your age? You use a colon and a space here as well. And of course, it's going to print, and it's going to say, so you're already age, years old, space, and then name, and so on. Okay, let's run this code one more time by clicking on the run module. Click OK to save. And the first line of code is, what is your name? So I'm going to say it's John. Hit the enter key on the keyboard, and Python displays nice to meet you, John, and then prompts me for the next input. What is your age? I'm going to say 22. Of course, that's not my real age. Hit the enter key, and Python says, so you're already 22 years old, comma, space, John. And notice after 22, there's no space between 22 and years. So I can go back to my code and make sure I have a space here. So you get the idea of the input command. Of course, I can build more. So if I need to say something like color, make an assignment statement, and say, what is your favorite color? Simply need to make sure that it's an input. So once I create another input function called color equals input, what is your favorite color? Same thing, question mark and a colon, and add a space. And then I can say something like print, so your favorite color is, and then I'm going to add the color, because whichever color I enter as an input will be displayed here where it says color. And then of course I can add an exclamation mark if I want to, and close my parentheses. Okay, let's run this one more time. Click run module, click OK to save, and my first prompt is, what is your name? So I'm going to say it's John. Nice to meet you, John. What is your age? It's 22. So you're already 22 years old, John. What is your favorite color? My favorite color is purple. So your favorite color is purple. Great. So very powerful, the input function in Python. You can take a look at it, and you can save this module called myInputFunction.py, or you can call it any other name, and you can keep building the module as you move along. So it depends upon your own requirements, and for practice using the input function, such as enter a number, add two numbers, and so forth, the sky is the limit. But I just wanted to ensure that you get the concept of the input function. Now, one more thing before I end the lesson here is that we use the comment code in the first line. For instance, the following will ask the user for a name. Now, after that, there are no comments, but it's a good idea, like I mentioned earlier, to use comments. You can use comments in a separate line or in front of the code itself. As long as there's a number sign to start with, Python is going to recognize that as a comment and ignore whatever follows after the number sign. So here, for instance, I can say something like age. In this line, I can enter a comment. This will prompt the user to enter age. Okay, so let me expand that a little bit so you can see. Great. So same thing I can do for the color here. This will prompt the user to enter a color. So this way, it's easier when you're writing code and someone else is taking a look at the line here, for instance, they would know exactly what this code would do or what this particular line would do. Like this will prompt a user to enter color. So a couple of ways you can use it. You can use it as a separate line. For example, I can just copy this, cut this from here, enter line, and paste. So I can use this convention as well. So whichever is easier for you, you can do both or either or. So it depends on your own requirements and your own style of writing code. So the input function is very powerful. It simply prompts the user to enter a certain text or value so you can evaluate and write the code. So practice, and let's move to the next lesson.